Hello and welcome. You're with the Economic Times, and we're talking about a very special conversation today because India is going through a change of a different kind. It's going through a revolution of sorts, and startups are changing the economic landscape for the country. Over 30 states and governments, union territories actually, have their own startup policies that are driving entrepreneurship across the country. Different states are positioning themselves differently so that each of them can have their unique standing in the world of startups. So, take the example of Bangalore, which continues to be the startup capital for the country. But when you name a Hyderabad, a Mumbai, Delhi NCR, Jaipur, Indore. So imagine even these smaller cities, Jaipur, Indore, Bhubaneswar, they're all trying to have their own position. Hyderabad is known for space tech startups. Bhubaneswar has a big focus on women in their entrepreneurial landscape. So that is panning out for the country. So to talk about how the landscape is changing and the opportunities are emerging, we have Madan Padaki, chair of TGS24 and president of TiE Bangalore, joining us. Thank you so much, Madan, for joining us. It's a pleasure having you here. I first wanted to start with, the unicorns. They seem to have hogged the limelight, the global investors to policymakers, and now some of them even the equity markets. Unicorns have got their attention from early investors and are known for their ambition. So how can their smaller cousin, the nanocons, from the remoter part of the country, more focused, which are more focused on the specific markets, how are they going to be the next engine for growth?
Thanks, Ashutosh, for having me on the show. Delighted to be here. As you rightly said, the whole conversation in the country is around what we're calling it as democratization of entrepreneurship. Right? For a country of our size and scale, you will need the unicorns, you'll need the sunicorns, and I argue that we also need the nanocons. Now, what's a nanocon? I define a nanocon as a small business venture, an entrepreneurial venture, that can generate 10 to 15 jobs during the course of its existence or more, and which will serve nano markets using nano capital, and I'll come to that, and leveraging the open rails of technology, which I will call as nanotechnologies. So essentially, I believe that for India to leverage its demographic dividend of 150 million young people entering the workforce over the next 10, 15 years, you need to create 5 to 10 million nanocons that can generate 10 to 15 jobs each, and 10 to 15 quality jobs at the local markets itself. And that is the new entrepreneurial revolution that we need to look at. That how do you enable every district in the country to be able to generate 10,000, 20,000 nanocons that can create these local jobs, quality jobs, leveraging the massive democratization of technology we're seeing through open networks, and working with various capital providers, which could be banks through Mudra loans, which could be angel networks that are sprouting up all across the country, and which could also be, experiments like the social stock exchange that NSE has done, where smaller NGOs and social enterprises can go and list themselves and access capital.
So it's a very good suggestion, and I love the way you've called the democratization of entrepreneurship. I just love that term. So what is the potential for change that these nanocons can possibly do? Would you call it also small is big as far as entrepreneurship is concerned?
And small is beautiful, Ashutosh, because
Absolutely.
what we need, I see that today India is at the cusp of a new revolution. For long, the unicorns, we have copy pasted the Western model. Arguably, rightfully so, because there was no other model, right? We were looking at the entrepreneur to think large scale and to put profits first. We were looking at VCs who came in and said, I'm going to give you the money and I need to take my money out first. And we were looking at technology being the core and IP being held. Now, when you look at democratization of entrepreneurship and the smallest beautiful model, you're looking at entrepreneurs who are coming and saying, listen, I will solve local problems. It could be healthcare, education, agriculture, financial services, lots of issues. So the issue that you have in agriculture in Rajasthan is very different from the issues that you have in
Mm.
Tamil Nadu, is different from West Bengal. So you need entrepreneurs who will solve local issues, right? And in a in a profitable yet a purpose-driven manner. So we're seeing a change in entrepreneurs who are coming and saying, I'm a purpose first, purpose-driven entrepreneur, but I will put profits as well along with it. I'm not a charitable enterprise, but I'll build an enterprise, right? Secondly, we are seeing the rise of democratization of capital. The TiE Global Summit had tons and tons, thousands of entrepreneurs and investors who had come from Surat, Lucknow, Bhopal, Indore, who are saying, how do I support my local entrepreneurs rather than investing only in the unicorns and unicorns, right? So there is democratization of capital that's happening. And third, we had a full track on democratization of technology, where if you look at what's happening with ONDC, with account aggregator platforms, with
Mm.
UHI, technology is no longer an IP that is held close, but an enabler for these small businesses to build on top of these open networks. So I think it's a heady cocktail. We are at the right time. The Indian model of entrepreneurship will define a lot of the growth, not just in India, but can be taken to other countries that have similar demographic challenges. And that is what we were celebrating at the TiE Global Summit.
So you also mentioned 5 to 10 million nanocons. Now, it's very important that women have a big role in this.
Absolutely.
And it just comes to mind that Odisha, they were talking about 5,000 startups by 2025, with one third of them being women.
Yeah.
How can women be the vehicle of change for the entire country and they could become a part of the economic change that is unfolding?
You've absolutely asked the right question. And women entrepreneurship was a big theme for us at TiE, not just at TiE Global Summit. 5 years ago, we started the Global Women Pitch Competition, and it was fascinating to see 43 powerful women entrepreneurs coming in from 30 different countries at the TiE Global Summit, pitching for the top $50,000 prize. And we've had people coming in from the Middle East, from Sri Lanka. We had people coming in from Singapore, Indonesia. Women entrepreneurship has, with the issues that we have in labor force participation rates, we in fact did a roundtable to discuss how do you bring more women, especially from the rural hinterlands, into the entrepreneurial landscape. We had This was driven by GAME, the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, which is doing a lot of work on making credit accessible to women entrepreneurs, as well as bringing women economic participation in online platforms. So I think in this in the 5 to 10 million entrepreneurs that we are talking about, as you said, at least 30 to 40% must be women entrepreneurs. They will change the fabric, not just of the economic fabric, but they'll change the societal empowerment fabric as well. In fact, at the government of Karnataka with KDM, we've also putting together a mission 10K to enable 10,000 entrepreneurs to come up in cities beyond Bengaluru,
Hmm.
right? And we have taken it as a challenge to say in the next 3 years, can we create 10,000 entrepreneurs to start their businesses? And we are saying, can 40% of them can be women entrepreneurs? Interestingly, Karnataka runs the Elevate program, which is the largest grant by the state to provide grants of up to 50 lakhs to startups. Heartening to note, a large percentage of them come from beyond Bangalore cities, and a large percentage of them are women entrepreneurs. So it's already happening out there. What we need to do is we need to understand the templates, customize it for various parts of the country, and start churning on how to make the flywheel working.
Mhm. So, financial inclusion is critical for women to make good of this opportunity. Can Indian women showcase this opportunity to the world? And if you can also explain what are some of the early signs that you're seeing? You mentioned about Karnataka. Would there be examples from other parts of the country as well?
Sure. In fact, the experiments that we've been doing with Mudra loans for women entrepreneurs are fascinating because
Mhm,
so far, most of the loans have been going to joint liability groups or SHGs. And we are trying to figure out, can we really provide loans to individual women entrepreneurs? And therefore, what is the framework to assess the business and what is the framework to provide the loans? With over 6,000 loans being given to individual women entrepreneurs through various organizations that we work with, we are seeing a pattern emerge where if we can, as you rightly said, enable the women to pitch with confidence to banks, to kind of create the business model in such a way that the banks feel comfortable saying that
mhm,
this is not, this is a sustainable business model. And three, to say that there is an ecosystem that is supporting these entrepreneurs, which gives more confidence to the lenders that they won't fall by the wayside. There is somebody who's supporting them. I think these three elements we've seen coming together: confidence, as you and getting the business model in place, and the support provided by a local ecosystem will
mhm,
really open up access to finance for these women.
mhm. Also, since the focus so much has been on the unicorns, and again, I get back to that, that term is kind of etched in a lot of the ecosystem and the players there. So, hence, how's the market beyond? How's the market for the smaller, relatively nanocons looking right now for the tier two, three, and even smaller cities? Can these changes and the promise that they do, the promise that they make of solving some challenges in the nano markets, in the local markets, scaled up around the country and perhaps the world as well?
Karnataka itself, Ashutosh, has several examples of these entities that are gone on to become huge businesses coming from non-metro markets, right? I mean, take Keynes, for example, which is a homegrown Mysore-based company,
Mhm,
and has gone on to become a stock market darling
mhm,
in the ESDM semicon space.
mhm,
In fact, last week there was just an article about a few friends of mine who had started a small nanocon kind of a business about 4 years ago into the cloud services. They scaled up rapidly and they got acquired by a huge Japanese multinational last month.
mhm.
And this business was based out of Bangalore. So we are seeing businesses not just take shape and start off small in tier three, tier four towns, or what we call as emerging clusters, but we're also seeing scale and exits happen. Now, obviously, it's a pyramid. Everybody need not have to go through the whole cycle, but what we are seeing is we're seeing journeys are possible. And just like any other ecosystem, I started my venture 24 years ago in Bangalore. And Meritrack turned out to be one of India's largest skills and testing assessments company. You know, what it as you've seen the ecosystem grow, uh, what inspires people is to see ordinary people doing extraordinary things, right? I got inspired by two friends of mine who had gone and raised capital. I said, hey, if these jokers can do it, why can't I? I'm sure somebody will look at me and say, hey, if this guy can do it, why not me? You need local success stories, and we are seeing local success stories emerge now from a variety of tier 2 tier 3 towns, which will spur more innovation and more uh, interesting case studies which will come on, and that is the virtuous cycle that we need.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic point that you made. You also said something that caught my attention a little while ago. The TiE investors, you said, and you spoke about democratization of capital. So, how can that capital, the democratized capital, be married with the democratized technology that is all around us to build a uniquely Indian model?
Yeah. So we've been we've been putting some pieces together, and it's fascinating how it's emerging. For the first time ever at the TiE Global Summit, we organized the Family Officers Conclave. We had over 500 registered participants who are angel investors, small business owners who are looking to deploy capital, and of course, the large family offices all converging. And one of the conversation points was, how do you recognize and how do you create local ecosystems where these investors can look at local opportunities? One of the challenges I was throwing up recently in Mangaluru was that, listen, with a population of close to 2.5 million people, can we find 10,000 local investors who can even commit 1 lakh each per annum to invest in startups that are changing the landscape in Mangaluru? That itself will give you a 100 crore fund for early
Mm.
stage ventures in Mangaluru itself. Now, imagine if each district were to come out with their own seed fund to tell young entrepreneurs to say, you don't have to go far. We are here. We are here to support you, and then connect you to platforms that can take you further. Secondly, this democratization of technology is just not on the open networks. We're finding a huge number of platforms that are enabling matchmaking between entrepreneurs and investors. Discoverability is becoming much easier. If I'm an entrepreneur, I can go to an online platform and say, this is the profile of investors I'm looking at, and bingo, you'll get a bunch of information about who's made what investments and vice versa. So I think uh, as the ecosystem strengthens and you're able to provide these entrepreneurs with better networks, access to markets, better platforms and mentoring tools, more and more investors will feel confident that this is not going to die in a flash, right? And therefore, it's worth that investment. I think we can create that environment and those safety nets in place. We'll find that we'll be able to attract much more capital to flow into these startups.
Mm. So the two parts of this question that I want to ask is, one is the opportunity that entrepreneurship could be the first choice as a career for, rather than, after you've done your MBA maybe,
Yeah.
and you want a long career in a corporate, what can industry associations, and very importantly, the second part, parents do for next generation kids? So if you
Yeah.
can go for the first one, industry associations and
Sure.
possibly government, and we can talk of parents.
Sure. Again, Ashutosh, that was a huge area of focus for us at the TGS 2024. We had over 6,000 students from across the country who had converged. We had done a whole show called Futurepreneurs Conclave, which is supported by DPIIT and ECGCCSR. We had walked them through 4 phases, right? One, I think, especially as you said, if you go beyond the metros, 8 out of 10 youth say, what do you want as a career choice? 8 out of 10 say, I want a government job. We need to flip
Mm.
that. We need to flip that to say, I will consider entrepreneurship as a career choice. So therefore, putting entrepreneurship first comes there. So we talked about inspiring, where they feel inspired enough to say, yes, this is a great career choice, right? It's this can potentially uh, help me carve out a path for myself. Two, you need to then trigger in their aspirations to say, what will you do? What space are you interested in? And third, you need to then get them started, which is where incubators and accelerators come into play.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you need a strong mentoring network to ensure that they stay the path. So, from an institutional support perspective, well, there are incubators and accelerators. We're also trying to say, how do we not just look at them as just glorified workspaces,
Mm.
but can you really bring in entrepreneurial energy into the college environment? So we spent half a day discussing with leaders like the director of IIM Bangalore, the former director of IIIT Bangalore, Professor Sadgopan, Rishikesh Krishna, Dr. Madhu Chitkara, and a whole host of others, on how do you really build an entrepreneurial culture at institutions which will inspire entrepreneurs or youngsters to take on entrepreneurial paths, and can the incubators truly become tinkering labs for them to try out a variety of things before they can decide that this is the venture I want to be on, right? It's also interesting to note that there are a lot of campus funds that are coming out. The government is introducing, again, in various policies, early stage seed funds that are available, grants that are available for student startups, right? So I think we have to catch them early, start them young. So by the time they graduate out of colleges, we are able to get them on a path. In fact, with Atria University in Bangalore, we launched the Atria School of Sustainable Entrepreneurship with TiE, where 4 years, TiE and Atria will provide a platform for them where they will try out various business models. And by the time they graduate, they have a plan in place which can then be funded by local investors, and we can take it forward. So I think for that 5-10 million nanocons to start, the starting base should be colleges and university systems. And we should truly start inculcating the entrepreneurial culture within the colleges, and not just as incubators, but at the larger level of the college itself.
We also need a mindset change for parents as well as the students. Students, as you mentioned, in some states where they are looking for a government job.
Correct.
How does that change happen?
Yeah. And to that question, Ashutosh, we have to start even earlier. I think, just to give an analogy, 200, 300 years ago, mathematics was considered as an esoteric art. It was considered only something that the elite could access. And you had specialists like abacists that used to go and use for counting. But today, mathematics is democratized.
Yeah.
It's taught from grade 1. We argue that entrepreneurial mindset should be like that. Everybody should think entrepreneurially. Whether they become entrepreneurs or not is a secondary question. And therefore, at TiE, for the last 20 years, we've been doing the TiE Young Entrepreneurs, where we take an entrepreneurial mindset and an entrepreneurial thinking program into schools and enable school children to start toying around with the concept of entrepreneurship, of thinking entrepreneurially. In fact, it was so heartening to see at Bangalore, at the TGS in Bangalore, we had 700 rural school kids between 6th grade to 10th grade who had all landed up with some product idea, some innovation that we had put them through our 20-hour innovation program. And they were all coming and pitching their ideas to investors. Right? Now, it's not about the product, not about the idea, but it's about their confidence to come back and say, I can dream of something. Right? And some of the ideas that they were pitching was fascinating. Right? So I think in schools, we must make entrepreneurial mindsets curriculum mandatory. Introduce every young person from every school student from maybe even as early as 5th grade to start thinking entrepreneurially.
So as we end, I'm just reminded of Boris Becker when he won the Wimbledon, July 85. I remember some of the local newspapers, and that's what I could access, mentioning that almost through the night, courts have to open because people want to play tennis and be a hero like Boris Becker. And Steffi Graf followed soon after. That mindset change is needed, I guess.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think we need to inspire a lot more people to do that, and success begets success.
Fantastic line to end the conversation. And thank you so much, Madan, for taking out the time for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. Enjoyed this, and look forward to working together to truly democratize entrepreneurship in every nook and corner of our country.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.